Hello everyone and welcome to the new session of the biology lecture series, and today we'll be discussing the NCERT Example questions for the topic Reproduction in Organism. So this lecture I would like to mention is completely NCERT based, alright, and we have already discussed some of the questions in the previous lecture, and today we'll be discussing the rest of the questions. So today we'll be discussing the long answer type questions. So let's start with the question number 1. So question number 1 is enumerate the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. So this is a quite straightforward question, and describe the type of asexual reproduction exhibited by unicellular organisms. Okay, you already know unicellular organisms. They have very simple body organization. Okay, and because of that, asexual reproduction is favored in unicellular organism. Now, let's have a look at the answer. So here I have listed the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, you already know, involves only one parent. So we can say uniparental condition. In sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. Okay, and the two parents, they form gametes, and then gametes fuse to form the zygote, and from the zygote, entire individual can develop. Okay, so we can say biparental. Two parents are required. One is male, which is denoted like this. Another is female. Okay, and they are both producing the gametes which fertilize to form the zygote. Okay, which is diploid. It has 2n number of chromosomes, means 2 sets of chromosomes. All right, and you can say there is a fusion of the gametes. So the organism that develop through sexual reproduction will be recombination or recombinant, means it consists genes of both mothers and father. It consists of genetic material of both mother and father. Now, asexual reproduction. Here only somatic cells are involved. Okay, or the vegetative cells. Somatic cells are also known as the vegetative cells. Okay, in these cells, asexual reproduction takes place. Okay, and with the help of what? With the help of mitosis. No meiosis is taking place here. Meiosis takes place in sexual reproduction. And which kind of cells are involved in sexual reproduction? Germ cells are involved in the sexual reproduction. These germ cells will form what? They will form gametes. Okay, which are haploid. And here, which process is involved? Meiosis. This is also another difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. Now, in asexual reproduction, it involves the production of the asexual spores, okay, such as zoospores and conidia. If you want to write the examples, you can write zoospores, which are motile, okay, and conidia in fungi are formed. Okay, so these are asexual spores. And sexual reproduction involves the formation and fusion of the gametes. Okay, formation of gametes is known as gametogenesis. It is known as gametogenesis, and fusion of gametes is known as fertilization. It is known as fertilization. Now, another difference is offerings are genetically similar to the parents in asexual reproduction because only one parent is involved. And in sexual reproduction, offerings are genetically dissimilar to the parent. This I've already told you because two gametes are involved. Okay, and these two gametes fuse with each other to form the zygote first, and from the zygote, embryo will develop. Okay, and from the embryo, entire organism can develop. Zygote will be diploid. Embryo will also be diploid, and this will give rise to the diploid organism. And this zygote or the embryo, it contains the genetic material from both the parents. Okay, so you know during sexual reproduction, what happens? Meiosis takes place. And during meiosis, what happens? recombination and crossing over. So because of this recombination and crossing over, okay, variation exists which helps in the evolution of a new species, and the offspring forms are genetically dissimilar to the parents. Now, asexual reproduction. The rate of reproduction is faster. Okay, and in sexual reproduction, the rate of reproduction is slower because it involves so many steps. Okay, formation of gametes. If we talk about plants, first is formation of gametes, gametogenesis. Okay, then we have the process of pollination, which is the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Then we have the fertilization, and after fertilization, okay, we have the zygote formation, or you can also write embryogenesis. Alright, so rate of reproduction is very slow during the sexual reproduction. Also, you can see here in the sexual reproduction, example, you can take example of E. coli. E. coli is a bacteria and its doubling time is 20 minutes. Okay, so in bacteria, usually what happens? Cell division or the reproduction takes place with the help of binary fission. So in E. coli, the doubling time is 20 minutes. So you can see the rate of reproduction is very fast here, where you can see the lifespan of the human or the reproductive phase of the human is very large. Now, asexual reproduction occur usually in unicellular organism. This we already know, such as the monarans and the protist. So these are the primitive organisms. Monera usually includes the bacteria, and protist, they include the unicellular eukaryotes. Alright, and in plants and in certain animals as well. It takes place in the following ways. How asexual reproduction takes place? First, by binary fission. Okay, this I've already discussed. In this type of asexual reproduction, the parent organism divides into two halves. Okay, and each half forming an independent daughter organism. So if this is a cell, it will divide into two halves, into two cells. Okay, and these two cells will be identical to each other. They will be identical to each other, and also they will be identical to the parent. So they are clones. Okay, you can also say they are clones. So this is binary fission. Example is E. coli. Then you can also say amoeba, euglena, paramecium. In all these organisms, binary fission takes place. Then next is budding. So budding is a type of asexual reproduction where a daughter individual is formed from a small projection, which is known as the bud, arising from the parent body. So you must have seen in Hydra and yeast. We talk about Hydra. So these are the tentacles of the Hydra. I'm drawing very rough diagram of a Hydra. And Hydra, you must have seen there is a bud formation. And this bud detaches from the body and forms the entire organism. So this is the bud. And the process is known as budding, and it is a type of asexual reproduction. Now, next method is fragmentation. This also we have already discussed. In fragmentation, what happens? It is a type of asexual reproduction. The parent body breaks into two or more fragments. Okay, this is similar to vegetative reproduction or vegetative fragmentation, where the parent body breaks into two or more fragments or vegetative propagules, and each body fragment develops into the organism. This is known as fragmentation. Example is sponges and Selaginella. Next is gemule. So gemule, it is a type of asexual reproduction, or you can say gemules are what? They are internal buds, and these internal buds are known as the gemules. They are also involved in asexual reproduction. Now, gemules are asexually reproduced mass of cells that is capable of developing into new organism. And gemule formation is seen in some sponges. The next method is sporulation. So in this type of sexual reproduction, dispersive structures okay, which can be dispersed, okay, through wind or through water or through any pollinator. The dispersive structures called spores, okay, which are usually dispersed through wind and water, are released from the parent body that germinate under favorable conditions to form new individuals. Okay, now let's see what type of spores are formed through the process of sporulation. The first are zoospores. Zoospores are the motile spores. They consist of flagella, that's why they are motile, and are found in aquatic animals. Okay, for example, albugo and chlamydomonas. In the last lecture, we've already seen the structure of the zoospores. It consists of the flagella, which helps in to swim in the water in the aquatic conditions. Now, next one is the sporangiospores. So these sporangiospores are non-motile spores, and they are known as sporangiospores. All right, and the other one is conidia, which are formed in the fungus such as penicillium. And sporangiospores are found where? They are formed in the rhizopus and the mucus. So these are also fungi. So all of these are fungi. In some fungi, sporangiospores are formed. In some fungi, conidia are formed. And conidia, we have already discussed in the previous lecture, are formed exogenously on the conidiophores. Now let's talk about question number 2. Do all the gametes formed from a parent organism have the same genetic composition? Means identical DNA copies of the parental genome? Now here we have to analyze the situation with the background of gametogenesis and provide or give suitable explanation. Now, no. The answer is, let's talk about the answers. Answer is no. All the gametes formed from a parent organism do not have the same genetic composition. Now we have to justify the statement. We have given the answer that the gametes formed from the parent organism do not have the same genetic composition, means they are not identical. Why they are not identical? So sexual reproduction in organisms generally involves the fusion of the gametes, which is known as fertilization. And these gametes are formed by two different individuals. Means two parents are involved, one is male, one is female. Now these gametes formed by the process of gametogenesis. Okay, the process of formation of gametes is known as gametogenesis. In the heterogametic species, means hetero means different, means in these species, two types of gametes are formed. Okay, two types, or you can say different gametes are formed. Okay, like in humans also you can say two types of gametes are formed, male gamete and the female gamete, which is known as the ovum. So in heterogametic species, gametes are of two types, namely male gamete and the female gamete. Example is the human. Gametes are haploid, okay, though the parent body from which they arise may be either haploid or diploid. So here they are saying gametes can form either through mitosis or meiosis. So if the parent body is, if it is haploid, means N, okay, haploid means N, one chromosome set, or it can be diploid also, means 2N. So if the gametes are formed from the haploid parent, gametes are always haploid. So here what will happen? Gametes will be formed through mitosis. And here gametes will form with the process of meiosis. Okay, but the gametes will be always haploid. And two parents are involved. Two different individuals are involved. That's why they are not identical to the parent. Now, in case of haploid parent, okay, such as in members of Monera, fungi, algae, and certain bryophyte, they produce gametes by mitotic division. Alright, and the number of chromosomes, that is the genetic composition, remains same after such type of division. So after mitosis, mitosis is also known as the equational division. So if the gametes are formed with the help of mitosis, then what will happen? The genetic composition will remain the same. It is known as equational division. There is no recombination in mitosis, so the genetic composition or the constitution will remain the same, and in this case, it will be identical to the parent. Okay. So if we talk about the diploid parent, okay, such as in the members of pteridophyte, gymnosperm, and angiosperm. So these are higher plants, okay, in which sexual reproduction will take place because they are complex. And in most of the animals, including humans, they produce gametes by meiosis. Okay. In such organisms which are diploid, specialized cell called the meiocytes, also known as the gamete mother cell, they undergo meiosis to form what? Gametes. So meiocytes are obviously diploid, and here with the help of meiosis, gametes will be formed which are haploid. So at the end of meiosis, only one set of chromosomes get incorporated into each gamete. You know, meiosis is known as the reductional division. It is known as the reductional division. And also during meiosis, what happens? Recombination takes place and crossing over takes place. Apart from this, during meiosis, recombination as well as crossing over takes place. Okay, and only one set of chromosome gets incorporated into the each gamete. It means that the gametes formed contain a haploid number of chromosomes in contrast to the number of chromosomes in the mother cells. Okay. So because of these, the gamete forms are not identical to the parent. Now let's talk about question number 3. Although sexual reproduction is a long-drawn, energy-extensive complex. Okay. You know, sexual reproduction involves a lot of events and it consumes a lot of energy. Alright. So although sexual reproduction is a long-drawn, energy-intensive, complex form of reproduction, many groups of organisms in kingdom Animalia and the Plantae, especially the higher organism, they prefer this mode of reproduction. Now you have to give the reasons why sexual reproduction is favored in the higher organisms, especially in the members of kingdom Animalia and Plantae. Now following are the reasons for the mode of sexual reproduction in group of higher plants. First one is the sexual mode of reproduction ensures the creation of new variants. Okay. So through sexual reproduction, new variants are formed. And you already know during sexual reproduction, meiosis takes place. And during meiosis, recombination and crossing over is taking place. And because of this, new variations arise. And because of this variation, or when these variations accumulate, then there is evolution of the new species. Okay, or you can say there is formation of new variants. Now, second point, genetically varied offerings are produced that adapt to changes in the environment and survive in all climatic conditions. So the offerings that are produced, okay, they are genetically varied. Okay, means they have the different genetic material or because of the recombination. So they can adapt to the changes in the environment and survive in all climatic conditions. Okay, this is the second point. The third point, sexual reproduction ensures the genetic recombination that results in variation which give rise to evolution. This already we have discussed. Due to recombination and crossing over, variations arise and these variations accumulate over time and it leads to evolution. So this is the reason why sexual reproduction is favored in higher organism, even though it is a very costly process. Now let's talk about question number 4. Now here we have to differentiate between estrus and the menstrual cycle, and then second part is differentiate between ovipary and the vivipary. And you have to give examples of the each type. Now, these are the difference between the estrous cycle and the menstrual cycle. So, first difference is the cyclic changes in the activities of the ovaries and the accessory ducts, as well as the hormones during the reproductive phase of non-primate mammals. Okay, so this you have to remember. This estrous cycle is happening in the non-primate mammals, whereas the menstrual cycle is happening in the primate mammals. So this is the difference. Rest is same. The cyclic changes in the activities of the ovaries and the accessory ducts, as well as the hormones during the reproductive phase of primate, is known as the menstrual cycle. Now, females show strong irresistible sexual urge during the estrous cycle, whereas the females do not show irresistible sexual urge. In estrous cycle, there is the estrus or the heat production at the time of ovulation, and copulation occurs only at that period. Okay, so there is heat production here. This is an important point here. But in menstrual cycle, there is no heat period or heat production, and the copulation occurs during any time of the cycle. Okay, so this is clear. Then, in estrous cycle, the shedding of the endometrium and bleeding do not occur. Alright, examples are in cows, sheep, rat, deers, dogs, and tigers. Whereas in menstrual cycle, the shedding of the endometrium takes place and bleeding occurs. Okay, examples are monkey, apes, and humans. So these were the differences between the estrous cycle and the menstrual cycle. First one, estrous cycle, non-primates. This happens in primates. Then there was heat production in estrous cycle. There is no heat production. Okay, then we talked about the copulation. And then there is the shedding of the endometrium, which, okay, there is no shedding of the endometrium in estrous cycle, but there is the shedding of endometrium in the menstrual cycle. Now let's see the differences between ovipary and vivipary. Okay, so ovipary, okay, these are those animals which lay eggs. Okay, so the egg laying animals are known as oviparous organisms. Okay, and this phenomena is known as ovipary, and the animals are known as oviparous. Vivipary, what is vivipary? In vivipary, animals give birth to the young ones. Okay, and they are known as the viviparous animals. Then ovipary, the eggs are covered by hard calcareous shell. This also you must have seen. You must have seen the eggs, okay, which are laid by these animals, oviparous animals. The egg is covered by a very hard calcareous shell, which protects the egg. Okay, whereas if you take the example of humans, which are viviparous, they give rise to young ones. So they give birth to young ones. The ovum, also known as the egg, okay, are not covered by any calcareous shell. Okay. Now, ovipary, the development of the zygote takes place outside the female body. This also you know, because the egg is produced outside the body, and the development of the zygote will obviously take outside the female body. Whereas in viviparous organisms or the animals, the development of zygote takes place inside the female body. Okay. First, zygote will form after fertilization, and then zygote will give rise to what? Embryo. And then embryo will give rise to entire organism. There will be cell differentiation and cell division, okay, which will lead to the formation of entire organism. Now, if you talk about ovipary, the females lay eggs in safe place in the environment, but the chances of survival are less. Okay, so you already know, you must have seen the oviparous organism, they lay egg in the safe environment because they have to protect the eggs from the what? From the predators. Okay, so they find a place, okay, which is hidden, okay, from the predators, so as to increase the chances of the survival. Whereas in vivipary, the females deliver the young ones, and the chances of survival are obviously more because there are no predators, and the young one is near to the parent, which can protect the young one. Alright, so this is clear. These are the difference between the ovipary and the vivipary. Now, examples, if we talk about examples of oviparous organisms, birds and most of the reptiles are egg-laying. All right. And vivipary, what are the examples? Mammals. Okay. So mammals usually give rise to or give birth to the young ones, except monotreme eggs laying mammals. What are monotreme egg laying mammals? Okay. So these are also mammals. Okay. Usually mammals are or they follow vivipary, but there are some animals which are mammals. Okay. But they lay eggs and they are known as monotreme egg laying mammals. Okay, so they are oviparous. Okay, mammals, they are viviparous. They give rise to young ones, and the monotreme egg laying mammals, they lay eggs. All right. Now let's talk about the next question. Question number 5. The question number 5 is, rose plant produce large attractive bisexual flowers, but they seldom produce fruits. Okay. On the other hand, a tomato plant produces plenty of fruits, though they have small flowers. Now here we have to analyze the reason for the failure of fruit formation in rose. Okay. Now here is the thinking process. This will help you answering the question. Now both these plants, rose and tomato, are selected by human beings for different characteristics. Okay. The rose for its flower, okay, and the tomato for its fruit. The roses being vegetatively propagated do not need to produce seeds. All right. So in roses, okay, the roses are usually cultivated because of its flower. So there is no need to produce the seeds. Okay. Seeds and fruit development is not required in rose. Okay. Now rose plant produce large attractive bisexual flowers, but they seldom produce fruits. The reasons for the failure of fruit formation in rose is as follows. Why there is no fruit formation? So these are the reasons. First one, the rose plant may not produce the viable pollens. Okay, viable pollens are not produced in the rose plant, hence no fertilization can take place. So fertilization, will take place when viable pollens are produced. And these pollens are carried from the anther to the stigma of the another flower. And then this process is known as pollination. Okay. And after pollination, what will happen? Fertilization. Okay. So no pollens are produced. There will be no pollination and no fertilization. And there will be no fruit formation and seed formation. Second point, rose plant may not have the functional eggs. Okay. So either they are not producing pollens or they are not producing the functional eggs. So in both of these conditions, there will be no fruit set and the seed set. The third point, rose plant may have defective and non-functional ovule. Okay, now we are talking about the ovule, which is present in the ovary. Okay, the rose plant may have defective and non-functional ovule, which is the female gametophyte generator. So ovule we have already discussed in the previous lecture. Ovule is present within the ovary, and within the ovule, embryo sac is present, which is known as the female gametophyte. Okay, so embryo sac is known as the female gametophyte, which is present inside the ovule. So ovule looks like this. Outer layers, there are two layers which are known as the integuments. Okay, these are the integuments. Then this is the micropylar end. This is the chalazal end. Here we have three antipodals. In the center, we have two polar nuclei. And here we have the egg cell. And these are the two synergids. Okay, so these are the antipodal. These are the polar nuclei. And the center one is the egg cell, which is the larger one, and the other ones are synergids. So these are synergids. Okay. So if defective and non-functional ovule is formed, then you can see the egg cell will be defective and there will be no fruit and the seed set, because there will be no fertilization. Okay. And without fertilization, there is no fruit set and the seed set. Now, next point, there may be self-incompatibility. Okay. So what is the role of self-incompatibility? It prevents self-pollination. It prevents self-pollination and promotes cross-pollination. So what happens here? In self-incompatibility, the pollens, okay, are not able to fertilize the egg cell. The pollens, they produce two male gametes, and these two male gametes fuse with the egg cell, other with the polar nuclei. So because of this self-incompatibility, the fruit set and the seed set is not happening. Now, fifth point, there may be internal barriers for pollen tube growth or fertilization. So pollen, if the pollen lands on the stigma by the process of pollination, then what happens? If this is the pollen, it germinates under suitable condition, it forms the pollen tube. Okay, and these pollen tube, it migrates or it travels through the style and then it reaches the ovary. So here two male gametes are present here, and these two male gametes are transferred. One fertilizes with the egg, other fertilizes with the primary endosperm nucleus, which is the union of the polar cell. So this should be diploid and this should be haploid. Okay, so there are some internal barriers for the pollen tube growth. Okay, because of that, fertilization doesn't occur and there is no fruit set and the seed set. Now, fifth point, as rose plants are hybrid and they reproduce vegetatively, and there are chances of them to be sterile. Okay, so now for so many years we have been cultivating rose through vegetative reproduction, through vegetative propagation, and there are chances that now the rose is sterile, means it is not producing any seeds. So no seeds are produced, there is no seed set, there is no fertilization, and here asexual reproduction is happening, and through that we are cultivating the rose plants. So this was the end of this lecture. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next session. Thank you very much.